know that feeling, sending that "I'm not feeling great today" email, and then immediately there's that pang of guilt, that little pit in your stomach.
Oh, absolutely. Like you're admitting defeat or something.
Exactly. Or maybe you've just pushed through, right, gone into work with a fever, a cough, because calling in sick somehow felt worse.
Yeah, it seems incredibly common, that pressure.
That's precisely what we're digging into today, this whole idea of sick day shame. What is it really? Where does it even come from? And why is it such a silent saboteur in so many workplaces?
It really can undermine things.
So our mission for this deep dive is to unpack all this. We'll look at the sources, see where this shame originates, the frankly surprising costs, both financial and, human, and maybe most importantly,
What can be done about it?
right, what are the more forward-thinking companies doing now to kind of rewrite the rules around self-care and taking sick leave?
Okay, so starting with the basics then. Sick day shame. What are we actually talking about?
At its core, it's that unspoken thing, isn't it? The guilt, maybe even fear of being judged when you take time off because you're actually ill.
It's rarely explicit, but it's definitely there. A kind of implicit pressure.
And what's really interesting is how it gets reinforced. It's not just one thing.
No, it's a mix. You've got this pervasive hustle culture, for one, this idea that you always have to be on, always present.
Yeah, valuing presence over, actual health or even productivity sometimes.
Exactly. Then there's often a lack of really clear, supportive company policies. If the rules are vague, people feel hesitant,
Unsure if it's genuinely okay to step away.
Right. And then a big one, managers. Sometimes they inadvertently model that push-through behavior themselves. They come in sick.
Setting that example, yeah. Whether they mean to or not, it sends a message.
It really does. And it makes individuals feel, replaceable, or maybe weak or lazy, just for needing to look after their health.
That pressure to seem constantly indispensable.
Yeah.
It can be so damaging. But why do you think even now we're still so attached to this hustle idea? What's the block for companies?
That's a complex question. Part tradition, part fear of losing competitive edge, maybe. But the data shows it backfires.
It really does. And speaking of data, the sources brought up a pretty stark number. That 2021 Glassdoor survey.
Oh, yeah, the 61% figure.
61% of employees said they worked while sick because they felt this intense pressure not to miss a day. I mean, that's more than half. It just shows the scale, doesn't it?
It absolutely brings it home. It's not a niche issue. It's widespread. And this whole culture of pushing through, this presenteeism, it has really clear negative effects.
Not just for the person who's sick either.
No, definitely not. For the individual, working when you're sick just makes it drag on longer. Your recovery time is delayed. Simple as that.
Makes sense. Your body needs rest to heal.
But then there's the team impact. That one person who comes in coughing and sniffling, they can easily spread it. You could have half the team down within a week.
Right. The domino effect. So you're not just hurting yourself. You're actively making the workplace less healthy for everyone.
Precisely. You're contributing to the spread, potentially sidelining a whole group of people.
And, okay, beyond the immediate health impact, there are the costs. The sources mention some pretty staggering numbers.
Yeah, the financial side is huge. Presenteeism, just people working while sick and being less productive, costs U.S. companies over $150 billion a year.
Wow, $150 billion just from people working when they shouldn't be. And it's similar in Europe too, right?
Yes, similar trends observed there. It's a massive economic drain, not just a matter of feeling a bit unwell.
And then there's that even bigger figure from the Integrated Benefits Institute.
Right, their 2022 benchmark report. It found that overall employee illness, combining lost productivity from presenteeism and actual absenteeism, costs U.S. employers, wait for it, $575 billion annually.
$575 billion. It's an almost incomprehensibly large number.
Yeah.
It really underscores why this needs systemic attention.
Yeah, it really does. It's not just a nice-to-have wellness initiative. It impacts the bottom line directly and significantly.
And there's another layer, too. When people don't get the rest they need, when they keep pushing.
Burnout, chronic stress. It dramatically increases the risk. You simply can't keep running on empty indefinitely without consequences.
So the $1 million question, or maybe the $575 billion problem, What's the solution? How do companies move past this?
Well, the good news is that many modern, more forward-thinking organizations are shifting. They're moving away from that old model.
A healthier approach, you mean?
Exactly. They're realizing that employee well-being isn't just a perk. It's actually fundamental to long-term success.
So what does that look like in practice? What are they actually doing differently? Is there anything that really stands out?
It feels like a genuine paradigm shift in some places. For instance, implementing really clear, encouraging sick day policies, making it explicit that it's okay.
So not just having a policy, but making it feel supportive.
Right. Things like maybe truly unlimited sick leave, or at least clearly stating you don't need a doctor's note for a day or two, removing the guilt factor, and crucially,
Let me guess, managers.
managers modeling the behavior, actively taking sick days themselves, showing, not just telling, that self-care is valued.
That leadership by example seems absolutely critical.
Hmm.
But what about managers who feel swamped themselves? How do they start modeling that without feeling like they're falling behind? That's a real tension, isn't it?
It is a challenge, and it requires systemic support, but it's vital. And another thing these companies are doing,
Go on.
they're normalizing mental health days, treating them just like physical health days, part of overall well-being.
Which is huge, moving away from celebrating the hero who drags themselves in sick.
Exactly, and instead actually celebrating people who take care of themselves, recognizing recovery as important.
And it goes even deeper than just policy or attitude, right? The sources mentioned something about workflow.
Yeah, this is quite interesting. Building recovery time into the workflow, treating rest not as a disruption to operations, but as an essential part of how work gets done sustainably.
That's a fundamental shift in thinking about productivity itself.
It really is. It reframes the whole equation.
So, okay, let's connect the dots. When companies actually do this, when they prioritize well-being, what's the payoff? It sounds like a win-win, but what does that look like?
It absolutely is a win-win. For individuals, you see faster recoveries, fewer relapses because people actually rest properly.
Okay, that makes sense.
And interestingly, while you might see people taking the sick days they need initially, overall absenteeism often decreases over time
How does that work?
because people aren't getting sicker from pushing through and they're less likely to burn out completely, so fewer prolonged absences down the line.
Ah, I see. And that must boost morale.
Massively. People feel valued, feel cared for. That leads to higher loyalty, better team cohesion.
And better collaboration, too, I imagine, when people feel safer.
Definitely. It builds psychological safety. People are more willing to innovate, take risks, collaborate effectively when they don't feel constantly under pressure or judged.
And the bottom line for the company?
Higher retention. People are just much more likely to stay where they feel genuinely supported. Reduces turnover costs, maintains institutional knowledge. It all connects.
It really paints a clear picture. It's all linked. The sources also mentioned a specific example, Office Sweet Spot, OSS.
Right, OSS. It's an interesting example of practical support. They help HR teams be more proactive.
How so? What do they offer?
Things like vitamin and immune support kits, personalized wellness tracking tools, even using AI to flag employee-reported symptoms early on and offer tips.
So it's about both prevention and better recovery when someone does get sick.
Exactly. A combined approach, actively supporting that health culture rather than just hoping it happens.
It really feels like it's time we stopped, admiring the person who toughs it out and comes in sick.
And started genuinely celebrating those who prioritize taking care of themselves, yes.
Because ultimately, a healthy office isn't just about efficient operations, is it? It's about the actual well-being of the people driving those operations.
Precisely. Sick days aren't a sign of weakness. They're not defeat.
They're strategic almost. A crucial part of working sustainably, staying healthy long-term for everyone involved.
So, thinking about all this, maybe the question for you listening is, what does a truly healthy office look like in your mind? Beyond just the output.
Yeah.
What about the people?
Yeah, how might this conversation change how you think about sick leave? Or the conversations you have about it, maybe in your own workplace or even just in your personal life? What could shift?